Xin chào các bạn. Thì chúng ta đang cài Visual Studio để chúng ta tiến hành code từ sát. Ta đang học ở khóa này thì cái video trước tôi làm thì nó bị mất. Thôi, đây là sự làm. Tôi lên basic. Đây là play. Có thể chia sẻ slide này sau cái nút video. Ok. Ta sẽ tiếp tục.
Hey everybody, it's Brian and welcome to the 6th C# tutorial. Go ahead and make a console application. Today we're going to do the do loop. Syntax is very simple. Do with 2 brackets, and then while, and then an expression. So we need to make a variable. We'll say int, call this counter. We'll say counter equals 0. And we're going to say counter plus plus. That increments the counter. And we're going to say console.writeLine. And we're just going to print out the value of counter. Now we need the expression of counter less than 10. So let's break this down really quickly and see what's going on here. We have a variable, we're calling this a counter. It's set to 0, so this is like saying the number 0. And then we're incrementing the counter. That's what this plus plus is. It's the increment operator. And then we're writing counter out to the output stream. We're saying while counter is less than 10. Oh, it appeared and disappeared because we forgot to do our console read. F5 to run. So you can see, while it's less than 10, it prints it out. Now, what would happen if you forgot this right here? Say while counter. Notice how there are build errors. Cannot implicitly convert type into bool. If you click on that, it takes you exactly where the problem is, and you can actually highlight it with your mouse, and it'll say cannot implicitly convert type into bool. Now what is that saying? Well, if you remember, an integer is a number, and a bool is a true/false, a light switch, on/off. So what we're saying is you cannot convert a number to an on/off. So that's why you have to say counter less than, or you could say counter greater than something, or less than or equal to 10. Now when you run it, you notice because we said less than or equal to, it went up to 11 that time. So that's how you determine when this counter is going to stop. Now, to really understand what's going on here, we should switch these two around. Do loops are kind of confusing to newcomers because they don't really understand what's going on under the hood. You notice how all we did was flip this around. We're writing to the console, then incrementing the counter. This gives you a better idea of what's actually happening here. It starts at 0, and then it goes through 9. And you notice how it stops at 9, because we're saying while it's less than 10. So once it hit 10, it just stopped. It said 9, and then incremented it to 10. And when it hit this again, it just said, nope, not running it. So that's how the do loop works. Now, if you wanted to make an infinite loop, you could just say while true. And let's run that, and you can see it just keeps going and going. Eventually, we will fill up the number space for an integer, and this program will eventually crash. We don't want that. So you should always have a limit to your do loop, unless you want an infinite loop, which is usually reserved for like video games or network monitoring, things of that nature. But those get into synchronous operations, something we're not really even close to yet. So we're just going to say while counter is less than 10. And we're going to cover what's called the while loop. And I'm going to show you guys a little trick here. If you right click, you see this surround with. You get a handy little list here.
Visual này những cái hay cách.
and you can just pick and choose from whatever you want. So if you forget something and you can't see it, but at the bottom of the screen is while, you just double click it. It puts the syntax out there for you. So it says while true, so this is an infinite loop right here. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is say counter, and we're just going to set this back to 0. Notice how we are not saying int counter, because we would declare the variable. That's bad. We're redeclaring the variable, and it actually, see how it gets mad, underlines and says local counter, local variable named counter already exists in the current scope. What that means is you've redeclared it. You've already got something out there called counter. Remember, a variable is something that'll change. We're just going to change the number here. Switch it back to 0, and we're going to say while counter is less than 10. Then we're pretty much just going to do the exact same thing. F5 to run. And let's see what happens here. We have 0 through 9, and then 0 through 9 again. Now, why would you want these? I mean, why would you ever want this? Well, let's switch this to 10 and see what happens here. You notice how one of them ran. See how it says 10? That's the difference between the do and the while. Do will always run first, and then evaluate the expression later, where while will evaluate the expression first and then run the code. That's the difference between the do and the while loop. So, very simple, very powerful. Why would you use a loop? Example, let's say you want to read a text file. You would start at the beginning of the file and then do while you're not at the end of the file, read a line. And you're going to see that in future tutorials. So, the do loop and the while loop are very simple yet very powerful functions in your programs. This is Brian. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this tutorial educational and entertaining.
Okay.
Hey everybody, it's Brian, and welcome to the 6th C# tutorial. Hey everybody, this is Brian, and welcome to the 7th C# video. We're just going to go to new project, and then you're going to do console application. Today we're going to be covering the for loop. The for loop is different than the do loop and the while loop in the sense that you can do something X number of times. And let's kind of illustrate here. We'll say int I equal 0. And you know that you can do a do and then while and then some condition. You know, do while I is, less than 10. Well, that gets kind of cumbersome. So why would you want to do that? Well, that's exactly why the for loop exists. Let's just delete all this. We're just going to go for, and we need our starting number, and we'll say int I equals 0, semicolon, and now we want our condition. At what point should this check? And we'll say, well, I is less than 10, and then we need to know what to do with I. So we're just going to say I++, meaning we're going to increment I. And this may look like a really, really funny syntax, and you're looking at this going, what is this? This looks like ancient Egyptian algebra, but it's actually very simple. There's 3 segments. There's the variable with the initial counter. There is the condition. What do you want to do? As long as I is less than 10. And then what do you want to do to that variable? Well, we're just going to increment it. So we're going to say console, right line, and we're just going to spit out I. Whoops, there we go. I'm just going to do a simple console read. That way the console will stay open. Press F5 to run. And sure enough, there it is. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, where's 10? Remember how we did it to 10? Well, it starts at 0. Get used to a 0 index counting. That's kind of universal across most languages. It starts at 0 because 0 is the first number for a computer, not 1. So while you start counting at 1, the computer always starts at 0. Because, well, 0 is a number. So it says while I is less than 10. What happens is I keeps going, it gets to 9, and then it says I++ right here, because this is the last thing that happens. You could have very easily written this as I++ right here, meaning you're incrementing I. But it does it for you right here. So when that hits 10, it goes back and reevaluates this and says, I is not less than 10. Now if you wanted the 10,
Okay.
you could say less than or equal to 10, and it'll count from 0 to 10, or 11 numbers. Let's test that just by F5. Sure enough, 0 through 10, there's our 11 numbers. Yes, 0 is a number. That's something you're going to have to get used to in the programming world. So that is the for loop. Now, you can also use, let's just do a little copy and paste action here, the for loop as an infinite counter. That is a valid for statement. Now, don't really have an I in there, so we'll just say forever. This is the structure of a for statement right here. And we've got no variables, no counter, no nothing. So if we run this, F5, you see it just keeps spitting out forever, ever, forever, forever. That's because it's just going to keep going indefinitely. And then we would just simply add in int, and we'll say x equals 0. And actually, let's do the reverse. Let's say x equals 10. We want to say x greater than 0. Actually, we'll say greater than or equal to 0. And then we'll say x minus minus. So what we're going to do is we're going to decrement the counter, and then we're just going to print out x right here. Save your work, run it. And now you notice we're doing the exact opposite here. We've got 0 through 10 and 10 through 0. So we're counting up and we're counting down. Very simple statements here. All right. I knew that this may be new to some of you. Some of you are probably rolling your eyes going, oh my gosh, I've done the for statement. If you know more than one language, you know that almost every statement is in every language. But we're going to review really quickly here. This is your for statement. This is your code block. Here's your evaluation. This is remember it's in the parentheses, it's going to be evaluated first. This is your variable. This is your condition. This is your action. In other words, you're saying I equals 0, so we're starting at 0. We're going to say while I is less than or equal to 10, increment I. And then each time it goes through here, it's going to run this code. So that, in a nutshell, is the for loop. Well, this is Brian. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video educational and entertaining. Hey everybody, this is Brian, and welcome.
Okay, good, very good. Rotate right. Đâu, không chạy đâu. Vậy chứ. Good. Possible như là sao? Rồi. Possible. Rồi. Cắt đúng không? Cắt mở ra ta sẽ đó. Đâu đó. Đó đây. Đấy. Thứ hai. Đưa xong. Giờ nó thấy sơ luôn đó. Chơi. Đưa xong. Cũng được. Sau đó. Được. Ok. chắc do càng nhiều con ba lơ coi thử nó có thể là mình những vậy được là ra lại khá nhiều tool suy sát on đây on block on có thể modify mỗi cái tool này cũng đủ thứ về bộ nhớ thì chết thì nó tốn bộ xe rồi là bao nhiêu cái gì sao rồi work this tiếng nói là thì rồi ta sẽ cho cái này bây giờ học đúng không còn quay lại nha mình sẽ đâu đâu cái đống này sẽ qua A sinh ra cái dòng này sẽ thay đổi à, ở đây tôi được lượng xong là A rồi tu đúng mà sắp đi nó không phải con là into bull ờ so if A bằng không ok if 6 build yes Và đây đó, bây giờ cái một chương trình rất là đơn giản, đang sửa có thể open trong terminal và không có cái cấu áp này đây ra a xem hot for it for it
Hey everybody, this is Brian, and welcome to the
rồi cái việc
8th C# tutorial. We're going to just open up a console application. Today we're going to discuss the for each. It's very similar to the for loop we discussed in the last tutorial, but for each says for each item in an object. Remember, everything in .NET is an object. Objects can be made of other objects. So we're just going to say string. Whoops, if I can spell it right. String, and we're going to say name. And we're going to say equals, whatever your name is. So now we have a variable called name. Notice how the green squiggly means it's not being used. It says variable name is assigned, but it's never used. Now what we're going to do is for each char c in name. So what we're simply doing is saying for each character, remember character is a type, in name. Name is a string. A string is a series of characters. Each one of these letters is a character. Then we're just going to do console.writeLine and then C.
for it thì nó giống như một cái kiểu mới của for để khi xuất một phần tử cho một cái mảng string. Ok, thì đây cứ xem hết mọi người thực hành sao đây không thực hành được ví dụ ở đây đó sẽ thành for string mở một cái khác for solution sẽ mở lại đây và chúng ta sẽ cho một cái string đi vào con rất nhiều case in case in control balance case in sự cái gì mà sai nó sẽ tự động còn sai rất là nhiều phần mềm không có đi đi xem có lỗi rồi. Không, không sai cái điều mình chạy rồi. Đi ra Pikachu. Còn sai cái điều đi ra gì? Chắc chạy.
So we're going to print
Xem
out
cái
each
gì?
character and then console.read, just so we can keep our window open. Press F5 to run, and sure enough, BRYAN. We printed out every character in our string. So the for each is similar to the for loop, but it's different. It's different in the sense that it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. You could have written this like for int I equals 0, I less than, let's see here, name.length.
Tuân từ vừa xem video để tốt.
Notice how name is a variable, but we are actually using it as an object. That's what I mean by everything in .NET is an object. You can use the name.length to get the length of the string name. And then we'll just say
video media
console write line.
rồi mình sẽ viết một cái viết mình để một mình đi đi sách ở đây tôi thích viết
And then
khó
bracket 0 bracket. Now what we're doing here is, you see how we're saying char string int index? What we're doing is saying get the index of that string. Remember we talked about 0 based in the last tutorial. The first one is 0, second is 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's actually just print this out here. We'll say I plus let's run this. Then we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how it's only grabbing the B. Well, the reason why is we put a 0 here. If we put this I here, then we're grabbing that current index. Remember, it'll be 0 through the length. So it's going to say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't get thrown off by the fact that it's starting at 0. There's actually 5 letters there, and we're going to prove that by F5 to run. And you see it says 0B, 1R, 2Y, 3A, 4N. So that is how you do a for loop, and that is how you do a for each loop. Very simple. All the for each does is it takes care of all of this for you. So you don't have to worry about any of this gobbledygook. It's much, much easier. Just say for each, type in object. Very simple, very easy. This is Brian. I hope you found this tutorial educational and entertaining, and thanks for watching. Hey everybody, this is Brian, and welcome to the 8th.
Thanks for watching. Ok. Thì tôi nghĩ tôi không nên chờ lâu. Chờ cho xong. Nó lâu quá. Em sẽ viết luôn. Sẽ sẽ tạo rồi. cái gì đã xảy ra. Rồi đây có sample đó, bạn có thể lên mạng tải, có thể tải có đâu nè, chính xác rồi nè, để đó ta sẽ dùng cái kết bên để tạo một cái này đều for us. Và một này là đầu lắm stop và bắt hết đi, nếu có lỗi gì thì sửa. Video window đây là new project, tạo một phép rồi display đó xong đây là cái system control control system control nó dùng mấy cái thư viện không ạ tôi nghĩ là chúng ta có thừa không nên copy tính chất không chữa mình sai đó đưa cái đó hay đưa cả thì cái con con này tôi đã đưa 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 rồi đây chúng ta sẽ số inbox play by stop everywhere à, cái chỗ lại rồi sau đó chúng ta sẽ build 6 build solution build xong chúng ta có thể chạy đây for đây chúng ta giao diện thôi tạm thời đây hướng dẫn như thế rồi tôi sẽ nghiên cứu cách chạy nó sẽ sát được không sau solution ở đây sau add Big variable.
Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 9th C# tutorial. Let's go ahead and create a console application. Today we're going to be covering arrays. What are arrays? Well, let's say you want to make a bunch of variables. Like you want a line in a bank, and you want to have, person 1, Bob, person 2, we'll just make up a name here, Mary, and person 3, oops, 3, and we'll just say the dude. We don't know who he is. Now you can make a couple variables and call them one at a time. But it's much easier if you make what's called an array. And to do that, we're just going to say string and then brackets. Let's actually scroll down here so you can see what's going on. And we'll just call this people equal new string. And then let's just give it a count of 3. So now we have what's called an array. Now, it has a normal variable, but notice these brackets. What we're saying is there's more than one of them in there. And to kind of prove this, whoops, what we're going to do is say people, and then we want 0, and we're just going to say Bob, and then people 1, we're going to say Mary, people 2, we're going to say the dude, because we don't know who he is. So this would just be a basic representation of people in line at a bank. Now, why would you use an array? A lot of people ask, hey, if you can already make a string, why don't you just make a bunch of strings? Why even bother with an array? Well, simple. So you can do something like this. For each, and we'll say string customers in people. So you want to know the names of all the people in line at the bank. Let's kind of scroll down here. So we're just going to say console, right line, customers. Actually, let's call that customer, because we're only grabbing one. Oops. Sorry about that. And then console read. That way we keep our console window open here. So this is a very simple representation of how you'd make an array. Now notice how we've got an array of strings. So we're saying we have more than one string in this variable called people. And it's a new string, and then we give it a number. We're giving it an upper limit. And notice we're saying 3. 1, 2, 3. Once again, don't get thrown off by that 0. Computers always start with 0 as the first number. So that is first, second, and third. And then we're going to use our for each loop. We're going to say for each customer in people. We're just going to print them out here. So let's run this. Sure enough, Bob, Mary, the dude. So that, in its simplest terms, is an array. This is Brian. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this educational and entertaining. Hey everybody, this is
Yeah, right. Yeah.